From the field to the uprights, this is Laces Out, the ultimate deep dive into college football special teams. I'm your host, Ryan Jones, former Cincinnati Bearcat kicker and NFL prospect. And every week, we break down the kicks, punts, returns, and hidden gems that win games. If you live for the sound of the ball flying off the tee, you're in the right place. Laces Out starts now.
Laces Out!
All right, welcome everyone to episode 1 of Laces Out podcast. I'm so excited to be joined today by one of my closest friends. He was actually a groomsman in my wedding, and we also chased the NFL dream together. He's a former NFL kicker and a Utah State legend. He's from Germany originally, and he now broadcasts NFL games and much more. I'm excited to welcome Dominik Eberle to episode 1 of the Laces Out podcast. Dom, welcome.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Let's go.
Awesome. Yeah. No, I'm super excited. I wouldn't want anybody else to kind of be on my first episode in this journey. I remember a few months ago, we were talking about it like, hey, I always wanted to get into podcasting. I just didn't know how to get this started, or, I just want to be able to talk ball and special teams, kicking. So the fact that we're here now, it's like, oh, okay. So let's have some fun and, have a good conversation. But, yeah, this is something, like I said, we're looking forward to today, just thinking about it. And let's just dive right into it, Dom. We're going to get right into the nitty gritty, a lot to catch up on to kind of get it going. This is the Gridiron 1880, kind of college football media network. So the prior for you to college football, let's go into the high school. What was that high school journey like, with kicking? I know you came from Germany, mainly raised in California, right?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So prior, or was it just the soccer background in Germany, or, did you do kicking there for like American football?
No, I honestly only played soccer. Like I didn't really know anything else. I just played soccer the whole time and kind of tapped into football by a little bit of luck, a little bit of the right opportunity at the right time. And at the time, I was very frustrated with the soccer coaches at my school just because there was no structure. Like it wasn't to the same level as I was used to in Germany. And then, kind of by luck, one of my friends told me to sign up to the football team after I completely skied a free kick over the bar. And
Yeah.
next thing you know, you kind of get into it. You're like, all right, I want to be a kicker. That's kind of like my specialty. I know it from soccer. Let me explore that option a little bit. And next thing you know, I just enjoyed it so much. Like the teammates I made immediately became some of my best friends. I still talk to some of them nowadays. And it's just that bond that you have with each other, with each other. And the first time stepping on the football field too, it's just different, especially when you're playing high school ball and you're not used to like having that much of a crowd at your under 18 games, even in soccer level. You go into
Yeah.
varsity and you see like 3 to 5 thousand people in California, which, if you're going to compare it to like Texas, it isn't a lot, but still for somebody that's used to not really playing in those big kind of crowds, it still is pretty awesome. But for me, kind of my high school experience was kind of funny because the first 2 years I really didn't play. I played a little bit freshman year, I played a little bit JV, but I was a backup. And
Yeah.
on some off nights, I won a kicking competition during the week. So I got to play in varsity my sophomore year. But most of the time I was JV.
Okay.
And then kind of by my junior year, still didn't really break through. Like I felt I was prepared enough to get some opportunities, but it just wasn't the right timing. Like my buddy and one of my closest friends actually was the starting kicker, and he ended up
Yeah.
winning the job. He was going to be the number one guy. He played varsity most of the year last year, and he ended up tearing his
Wow.
groin. So next thing you know,
Oh,
it's like, hey, I got to step up. Like I'm the only kicker. I got to do everything. And it kind of took off from there. Like at first, it was just kicking touchbacks for kickoffs. And next thing you know, the field goal started going in. And then you're going into your senior year. And, next thing you know, you just keep going and end up being like 95, 96% touchbacks in high school.
wow.
And you're starting to get a little bit of college interest at that point. And I really was oblivious
Yeah.
to what college was going to be like and the recruiting process up until like I had a couple schools that were interested, uh, probably
Yeah.
was going to be a walk-on at them, but still I didn't really process that was a big opportunity to do up until like late in my senior year.
Wow, okay. Yeah, so you really didn't even start on the varsity team, you're saying, till your junior season, correct?
Exactly. And even then, it was kind of just by a little bit of luck and like completely
Yeah,
unfortunate for my friend, and obviously
yeah,
hurts me for him. But
yeah,
it really was just like, you know what? The best thing you can do is be prepared so you don't have to get ready. And
yeah.
that ended up just being the time.
Yeah, and I think that's for, I mean, I think you hit on it too. It's like you got to prepare as if, you're going to be the starter, for week one going on Friday night. So it's like you got to be ready for it, when your number is called, because in that unfortunate situation, like right there, you're thrown into it and you got to hit the ground running, obviously be able to kind of, for touchbacks, punting and field goals, you got to help the team out where you can. So no, that's awesome. So going into like to the recruiting side, and it's crazy. I think about for myself, in Indiana where football is not gigantic. In the high school I was from, it kind of took till, for me, my junior year, I hit a 52 yarder in a game. And this was like, it too, because we graduated in 20, our true freshman year in college was 2015. So social media wasn't what it was. And I would say majority of my help came from kind of like, for me, my personal experience was Cole's kicking, but kind of like the recruiting process, like you said too, you didn't know what you're getting yourself into. I didn't have kind of that person that was there um, to kind of be like, hey, yeah, this is what to look for, what to not look for, what to avoid. When you go on a visit, do this, don't do this. So, were you kind of, is that kind of what you're saying too? The same thing, like you didn't know really what was out there, especially like once the recruiting, the school started reaching out to you.
Yep. Like I really had nothing coming in my junior year. Like I had a great year, but it wasn't like any big time D1 schools kind of were reaching out. And I ended up doing a camp for Michael Husted out in
Okay.
Arizona. That was my first ever kicking camp I'd gone to. And I ended up
Yeah.
finishing second in the field goal competition. Just barely lost out, but still had a great showing. And he kind of saw the
Yep.
potential in me, started like wanting me to come down to San Diego at the time a bit more to work with him. And
Hmm.
it just kind of helped that development to get going a little bit with some specialty kicking coach. And
Yeah.
then he kind of told me about like, hey, you can go to college camps over the summer and put your name out there.
Yep.
Just do that and
Yeah.
just see what happens. And next thing you know, I go to University of Pittsburgh. That was my dream
Okay.
school. Wanted to go there, but they had what's his name? Blewett was their
As
kicker.
I say, Chris Blewett would have been there, right? Yeah.
Yep, and he had just had a good freshman year. He was on scholarship, so it was kind of like, looking back at it now, it didn't really make sense for me to go to the camp because they weren't gonna let
Yeah.
me go in there and compete. Kind of once you have a
They
kid
weren't
on
looking to
scholarship.
scholarship a kid in your class. Yeah.
Exactly, but
Yeah.
I ended up balling out at the camp there. Like I was the only West Coast kid at the camp. Everybody else was East Coast, had their affiliations, and I ended up winning the field goal competition by a mile. And next thing you know, Pitt offered me a preferred walk on. They're like, hey, we'd love for you to walk on next year. And
Yeah.
I didn't really know what it meant. I thought it was just like, okay, it's not a scholarship. Like they didn't want me. Uh, but that kind of got things going a little bit more.
Yep.
Then I started reaching out to another kicking coach out in California that was just a little bit closer to the LA side, Brad Bond, for West Coast Kicking
Mm-hmm.
Academy, and end up going to his camps, working one-on-one with him, developed really well, was hitting like 65, 70 yarders by senior year in high school.
Yeah.
A little bit of wind sometimes helps, so you can push the distance further. But he saw the potential and he
Yep.
ended up reaching out to the school I ended up going to, Utah State, because he
Yeah.
played there like 90s, early 2000s, and
Okay.
kind of built that bridge. And pretty unexpectedly, I went up there for an unofficial, ended up just kicking on the field after one of the practices. Uh, Coaches weren't supposed to be watching, but I feel like
Yeah.
my special teams coach was maybe a little bit watching through the window. Um,
Yeah.
and next thing I know, I just kind of get the call right before summer, like, hey, you got a spot as a preferred walk-on for fall camp. And it really was, I was the very last guy on the roster for fall camp. Like that was probably like,
Wow.
okay, we might need another kicker. We only have two. end up getting on there, and that kind of built the bridge for my college career.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was gonna ask you kind of what, especially like you said, going from the West Coast to a camp in PA at Pittsburgh. So it's kind of like you said, most of those kids are probably Midwest, the East Coast kids. But what got you to Utah State? And sometimes that's the kicking coach you work with. It's they might have the ties, or they kicked at they're an alum from that school. So that's awesome. And that's what, for the average viewer, I would say majority of the times, even with NIL now, majority of your specialist offers are PWOs. Like what Dom said, I was a PWO to Cincinnati as well. So, and normally it's a scholarship for one kicker, one punter, and one long snapper. So that's kind of how that works out there. But no, that's awesome. So you walk on as a PWO going to fall camp. You said there was two kickers ahead of you, correct? There at Utah State.
Yep. There were two guys ahead of me, and I remember coming in, I was like, I don't know, 165 pounds soaking wet. Like I was
Yeah,
skinny. I could kick the ball a mile, but I was super skinny and underdeveloped. And I remember
yeah,
first training camp day, got like 3 field goal attempts, and that was it. That was the
yeah,
rest of my fall camp. By like day two, it was clear that I was redshirting, like, hey, this kid's got potential, but let's kind of let him be. And
yeah,
so I end up like, as a freshman, you're very frustrated, especially when you feel like you're practicing really well, but you're not getting opportunities. I kind of took
yeah.
it at first with the frustration that comes with it, which I think is very natural, especially at a position like us where it's very competitive within oneself. Like you want to be able to prove
Yeah,
I can do this. And
yeah.
so I was frustrated at first, but then I just took the opportunity to grow and learn. They ended up scholarshiping the second kicker. So they had a field goal kicker and a kickoff guy, both on scholarship. So
Okay, yeah,
by the time my freshman year was like about to start, I realized, you know what, I'm not playing this year. I might not even play next year because they're gonna be seniors next year. But I'm gonna just take it
yeah,
and try to grow from it as much as I can, like physically, but also on the field. And kind of what happened during the season, the kickoff guy ended up having his appendix removed, like right before one of our
oh,
most important games. And
yeah,
I hadn't gotten a rep since the first day of fall camp, and now we're in like middle of November. Next thing you
yeah,
know, I'm stepping in. I got to kick off. I got to take the long field goals in practice. And I remember I hit everything. Like it was literally like 50
yeah,
plus. I'm hitting field goals from there. Everything else was Brock. And I go in practice and I make everything. And that was the first time our head coach was like, you know what, this guy might be a guy that can play for us. And
yeah.
so that was kind of like the first developmental step I took. Ended up playing a bit more the following year, kicked a couple long field goals, had a couple
Okay,
kickoffs and stuff. But kind of my redshirt freshman year and my freshman year just took time to develop as a kicker because I feel like the more you build your craft and the more you repeat it, the better you get.
yeah. No, and I think that's kind of like you hit on it, where you redshirt your freshman year, true freshman year, and it's like it seems like a negative in the moment. I think one thing where guys at that level in all positions that play, they go to college and it's almost like a reset. Like, hey, everybody was a 3-star, 4-star, 5-star from their high school. Like everybody was the top guy. Now we're coming together in the same locker room as top athletes from all over the country, at their position, and you gotta reprove yourself. So it's like, for you, took advantage of, obviously not getting the reps in fall camp, and that's the thing with kickers, you're limited to what reps you even get in general. So it's like you got to make the most of whatever's presented to you, but just taking advantage of it. Like obviously when your time was called, when that kid had his appendix removed. So you just took advantage of what you needed to do in the middle of the season. But prior to going, I know you said your second season you started kicking a little bit more long distance field goals. I'm assuming at some point around then you got put on scholarship. But I think this is a story you told me. In the off season, what were you doing? I think you were working at a restaurant, right? In the off season, while you were still a walk on. Give me just a little rundown of that and what type of restaurant were you working at?
Yeah, just a normal like American style restaurant in Logan, Utah. Just
Yeah.
I was working as a host or a busboy, and that was kind of just to get bills paid. I was like, all right, I gotta pay rent, I gotta pay for
Yeah.
food, I gotta do this stuff. And I was taking 18 credits, so I
Yeah.
was taking the max amount of classes because at some point it
Yeah.
just wasn't gonna be financially working for me anymore. They weren't granting me the in-state
Yeah.
tuition, so I had to just hey, pay a lump sum there, take a loan out. Then next thing you know, all your other costs come up. Had a car, had car insurance. My parents like thankfully took care of a
Yeah.
lot of that, but I felt like I needed to
Yep.
carry my own weight, so I was balancing starting in spring ball of 2017 that was just full time like working, uh
Wow.
doing school and doing everything else. And
Yeah.
you kind of figure out just, you know what, my schedule needs to be this. I'm not going out. I'm not doing anything stupid. I'm locked into
Yeah.
being the best football player and being off the field, everything responsibly, so I can focus on that. And most of the times, my days would
Yep.
be like waking up at 5, going to meetings at 5:30, then having
Yeah.
classes till noon, then spring ball, have to leave spring ball early, and then go work a job up until like 10 or 11 p.m. and then do it the next day and the
Yeah.
next day. And that kind of was just the locked in vision you need to have to really achieve your dream. And that spring, what ended up happening was I had a very solid camp and a very solid spring
Yeah.
ball, but about 2 or 3 practices before a spring game, I just couldn't figure out the weather. Like it was snowing, the wind was kind of like twirling, and I ended up
No.
yanking like 3 or 4 kicks left. And I was just trying to figure it
Yeah.
out. But, our special teams coordinator was new and he wanted to challenge me because that was the
Yeah.
first time I'd like struggled at all. And
Yeah.
he ended up putting me at second string for the rest of spring ball. Like I had one back practice
Wow.
and immediately was put with the twos. And that was kind of like a blessing
Wow.
in disguise because it really pissed me off. I was like, man, like I've been practicing great. I had one bad practice. Like this is not end all
Yeah.
be all. I had great rest of the spring ball, and I'm going into like fall camp. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I gotta be even better. If that wasn't good enough, and he's putting me at twos, then I gotta be even better. And then it
Yeah.
wasn't up until fall camp, right before the 2017 season, where I'm
Yeah.
locked in. I'm making almost every single kick, and
Yeah.
get a call from the school. Hey, your loan bounced back. They're not granting it to you. Like your bank won't give you your loan. I
Wow.
I had no idea what I was about to do. I was like, man, I gotta talk to my
Yeah.
coaches. Like, hey, they're not granting me a loan. My bank's taking it back. Can't afford the school anymore. Like I got until the end of August really to figure things out because they were at
Yeah.
least like willing to extend me that. And we ended up having a
Mm-hmm.
scrimmage. I had like 4 field goals in the scrimmage. And then the very next practice was kind of just like a big surprise. Coach huddled everybody up at the end of
Yeah.
practice. Actually had a cop come in and said like, "Oh, we need to talk to these people. Like we got our handcuffs out and stuff." And they ended up giving us like our long snapper and 2 other people a scholarship right then and there. And the first thing for me was just, all right, I don't have to transfer. I don't have to like do anything else. I can quit my
Oh yeah.
job and focus on football. But yeah, that was kind of like a wild
Yeah.
ride because you just grind all year with all these ups and downs up until that like reward comes.
Yeah. And I mean, just to say one, I mean, and spring ball alone on top of your academics is a grind, like a Monday through Saturday grind. And then working a full-time job is insane. So, um, I thought that was just something huge to talk about, because that's part of your journey and made you the athlete and person that you are. But, and it's like also like, oh, if only we were a little bit older because then NIL would have helped us out. But, that wasn't the situation. But, so you're in a scholarship going into that'd be your redshirt sophomore year, right?
Yep.
2017 season, which um, I know in general, I mean, there's so many accolades about Dom's career that I don't even have enough time to go over it all. If you want to smash the QR code here, go ahead if you want to take some time to read over those accolades. I had to do my research. I think you hold, and I don't know if you know this, you hold 25 plus records between single season records, Utah State records, um, the Mountain West, you hold records in there, career Utah State records. I mean, in any aspect you hold records in. But the big one I think I'm going to throw out there is your first season on scholarship. Probably, I'm assuming you kicked off and field goal as well. You're a Lou Groza
Yep.
finalist. That'd be the kicker Heisman in college football. So thinking about that for Dom is massive. Your first season really kicking. You just got put on scholarship. It sounds like obviously new special teams coordinator. So there's a lot of extra pressure that you wouldn't even know about. But kind of go through that season real quick. Just how it went overall. Kind of finding out your Lou Groza finalist. Things like that.
Yeah, it ended up being like a quick year, I felt like, because so much had happened leading up to the season where all the weight got put
Yeah.
off my shoulders. Like I got over the hard part, taking 18 credits, like got that done. Was able to take a class during summer to make it easier for fall. Then you get to put on scholarship. And next thing you know, it's like,
Yeah.
you know what? I can, for the first time in my life, like just focus on football and enjoy it. And then once you're in the
Yeah.
season, it's just like you just feel like you perfected your own craft right before the season, and that got things going. And hey, from week one all the way to the end, it was pretty much just like automatic. I felt like I was in a great rhythm, had a great holder, had a great
Yeah.
snapper, and up until the very last game of the season against Nevada, the only kick I had missed was a blocked field goal. Like it am getting blocked, and that's
Yeah.
a whole nother story. They got a 6'9" basketball
Yeah.
player that played like a couple special team snaps. He ended up blocking like every single punt.
Yep.
And in field goal,
Yeah.
Kaufusi was his name. He played at BYU.
Yeah.
And
Oh my
he was the
gosh.
only one that got a piece on one of the kicks, and like they ended up blowing up right that through the A gap, right by the snapper. He was probably
Yeah.
like 5 yards in front of me, jumping with the highest vertical you could probably think of, and he only ended up
Yeah.
getting a
There's no chance,
yeah,
unfortunately.
he got a hand on the ball, like almost got enough lift to get it over him, but
Yeah.
that end being my only miss or
That's
like
crazy.
recorded miss during the
Yeah.
season up until I missed like a
Yep.
47 yarder against Nevada last game of the year. But right up until
Yep.
that time, I was like, man, I'm leading the NCAA right now in field goal percentage. I feel like that could be enough to like get an invite and maybe win the award. And then after I missed the one against
Yep.
Nevada, I was like, man, that's it. Like I have no chance. Like uh, that one miss could be the difference, and I still end up getting invited.
Yeah.
Matt Gay from Utah,
Yeah.
our rival school, ended up winning it that
Okay.
year. Daniel Carlson,
Yep.
who ended up playing with the Raiders, he was also a
Yeah.
finalist, and two amazing guys, older guys as well. During my sophomore year, and I was kind of like, hey, if I'm already here my sophomore year, I can keep working, keep getting better because the goal was to eventually win the award, and ended up not
Yeah.
happening that year. But I knew that with my preparation, I would be going into the next year strong.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of prepped up your last 2 years. And going back to like you had two guys that they were probably seniors, right? Matt and Daniel were probably seniors. So it's like you're a sophomore, in your first season kicking full time, already. So, I mean, you took advantage of all the opportunities and you teed up your last two seasons, which um, overall, didn't you guys? I know, and then we can hit on this in a minute, but your last two seasons, team success, you guys were top 25, right? Or in and out of the top 25?
Yeah, we ended up finishing inside the top 25 in 2018. We went 11 and
Yep.
2, like we were ranked 11th or something like that as our absolute highest. Like we'd lost our
Yeah.
opening game to Michigan State in a dogfight back and
Yeah.
forth, and ended up winning 10 straight after that, blew pretty much everybody else. Like there was maybe one close game in that whole stretch, but every
Yeah.
other game was like 30, 40 plus point wins. We were up,
Oh,
like we were
wow.
putting up 50 before half against some teams.
Yeah.
And it was
Yep.
just such a dominant streak where we were just having fun. Like that was the first time everything was
Yeah.
clicking. The whole 2015 and 2016 class, the guy who stayed, we kind of just gelled in very well, ended up being like the key players for the
Yep.
team, and it was just a ton of
Yep.
fun. Got ranked that year, ended up losing a nail biter to at Boise to not be in the Mountain West Championship game, But after that, kind of
Okay.
transitioned into 2019, had a new head coach, had a big change with that, of course.
Yeah.
But still, we ended up having fun, having success. Didn't end up winning the bowl game that year, but still felt like the senior class left a good stepping stone for the younger guys. And
Yeah.
2 years later, they ended up winning them
Yeah.
out west. So it was kind of like, even though we weren't there, we kind of feel like we helped that
Yeah.
culture.
You guys kind of laid the foundation because that's the way we look at it. When 2017 when Fick came in from Ohio State, that first season it was a 4-6 season, and you think about everything we did in the off season, and then that happens. It is what it is. Like it was rebuilding the culture, but my last 2 years, both back-to-back 10-win seasons, go to bowl games, win both bowl games. 2019, we won the east side of the conference and then lost to Memphis in the conference championship. But, that's where we look back. And like you said, we just had so much fun. The fall camp was fun. The stuff you dreaded if you weren't having fun as a team and winning, you were like, hey, let's go back to fall camp. Let's do the mat drills. Let's do the summer lifting at 5 a.m. when it's 80 degrees out, things like that. You want that stuff back. And that's what that winning culture, obviously, a winning locker room is great to be in. So that's awesome. And then, just to hit on it, like for me, I had a big guy, or it ended up being a couple big time guys I played with. But for you, you had Jordan Love in the locker room. Give us a little taste of how he was in the locker room outside of the locker room too, just hanging out. Was he a good guy? I'm sure that brought in a lot of I just know about his kind of situation with the draft and scouts, but obviously that had to have helped guys out too. Not saying you, but other guys on with you and Jordan with scouts coming in to watch practice. Kind of just give us a quick little idea of what that was playing with Jordan Love.
Yeah, it was a cool story. I mean, he kind of came in. We had a
Yeah,
couple quarterbacks already recruited in, and he was tall, skinny kid. And he was
yeah,
a guy that came in very high spirited at first, then kind of saw, okay, hey,
yeah.
this is where I need to develop. And in the weight room, we had Joey and Derek was there at the time. He's now the head strength and conditioning coach at Tennessee.
Oh, nice.
We also had Coach
Okay.
Dave Scholes, who was our head of pretty much sports performance there, nutritionist, everything you can think of. Dave was the absolute best at like pretty much everything behind the scenes when you're trying to get into weight room stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he took Jordan and he changed his body over the course of like a year to where he started to look rather than just a
yeah,
skinny kid to, hey, this guy's a quarterback. Like he's 6'4", 6'5",
yeah,
like he's looking strong. You know what? Let him rip the thing a little bit and let him get on the playing field. And we ended up playing at
yeah.
Wake Forest. We're getting blown out, and I believe this was in
Hmm.
2017 at the beginning of the year. We're just like, all right, we're gonna try Jordan out, throw him in there. Let's get him a couple of game reps. Like he's already a backup, but get him game reps so he's maybe ready at the end of the year next year. And I swear, like it was his second
Yeah.
or third pass attempt. It was a 75-yard bomb to our kick returner
Yeah.
too, Tutty. Uh, we end up getting the ball back
Yeah.
because they went 3-and-out or something. His second drive, Tutty again, and we're looking at it and I'm like, hey, this quarterback's pretty solid. Like, let him play a little bit more.
Yeah.
So then the following
Yeah.
week we play at UNLV in Vegas, and we're down like 28-0
Yeah.
after the first quarter. And they switched
Yeah.
quarterbacks for us. Like we're just like, all right, put Jordan in. I think we won 52 to
Yeah.
28 or 52 to 35. Like he ended up scorching as soon as he got the job, and that kind of showed you like, hey, this guy will work quietly behind the scenes. Like off the field, same
Yeah.
thing. You would hear absolutely nothing from him with any sorts of trouble. He'd go home, he'd chill, he'd work hard, maybe hop on the game a
Yeah.
couple times. But then when he came in, he was just like stone cold assassin, like change that game
Yeah.
around and immediately we could see he could spin the thing. And once 2018 started, it was kind of like that level up where you look at him, it's like that's an NFL quarterback. Like, you might not see
Yeah.
too many guys like that are that special. But immediately the shift changed, and for me, the craziest thing I've ever seen was we're practicing like a Hail Mary situation, and it's offensive emphasis, so the defense
Yeah.
not going to swat the ball down or anything. And Jordan kind of just
Yeah.
like was backing up, trying to like play around, avoid the defense, and he's throwing it like off his back foot. His signature kind of throw that you see him do in the NFL was kind of fading away, throwing it off his back foot,
Yeah.
70 yards into the back corner pylon on a rope. And I'm like, dude, that might be the most insane throw I've ever seen in my life. And after that, I was like, this guy's going
Yeah.
first round. Nobody can tell me it otherwise.
And then look what
Yeah,
happened. Oh, that's
yeah. But
crazy.
I'm
No, that's awesome. And that's one of the things you saw what he did in the weight room and things like that. Like he was there to work. It was business for him, outside of outside of the locker room, maybe some war zone and things like that. But, when it came to the football side of it, it was business and was going to take advantage of the opportunity. So let's kind of transition here, Dom, kind of to where we first met. This would be 2020. So we would have just both finished up our senior years of college. We moved to New York, and this would have been January. So 2 months before the pandemic hits. Um, and we're staying in a house in Lockport, New York that I think the roof to the second floor was caving
man,
in. There was like 10 of us in this small little house in Lockport, New York. Um, but yeah, just grinding together, right? I mean, there was 10 of us that had aspirations of playing in the NFL, and um, we all trained together, we lifted together, but um, kind of go through, for you, I know you end up being able to get a workout in before COVID
yep.
canceled everything. Give us a little bit of a background, those 4 or 5 months from January to April or May of your experience. Obviously, the transition to the NFL.
Yeah. Hey, it was a crazy, crazy journey because I'd just gotten over to New York where y'all had already been. Like we all got to meet each other for like a day or two. And then I had to go to the
Yeah,
East-West Shrine Bowl out in Tampa. So I just arrived, had to go
yeah,
fly back to Tampa, and then that was my first experience like with the NFL. Like what are scouts going to ask you? Like getting to know you. They're kind of visualizing all that you're doing, like what's your schedule like. Pretty much every action you take is completely monitored and written down. You're taking all these like
yeah,
neuroscience tests and everything, and yeah, you kind of go through the interview process like, okay, trying to figure out what are your weaknesses, what are your strengths, what are things you're working on to consistently get better, and then just on the field, like how are you performing? We want to watch every single practice. Like, are you a guy that kicks a lot? Are you a guy that kicks a little bit? And then the interview
yeah,
process kind of starts. You're getting called down. You have half an hour to an hour with certain teams and scouts. Same thing, background check, do all that kind of stuff. And by the time the game comes, you're kind of physically and mentally worn out because all you're doing is interviews 24/7. You're getting called up by this team in this room.
yeah,
And then the game comes, you can just kind of ball out and focus on football. And end up having a good
yeah,
game, made both my field goals, both my PATs, and flew back to New York. Now we finally got to work together. Like at first, it was 10 of us staying in one house, all kind of having to go to the same
yeah.
places, kicking, punting, doing everything, and get
I think we're all in like blow up or single bed air mattresses or like just single beds. Like I know I was in a room with Logan Justice from Indiana University, and you were in a room with two other guys, and then there's like four guys out in the living
yeah,
room.
it was weird. It's
Talk about
like
bonding.
so it was y'all two, us three, then it was another room with two, and there were like
Yeah,
four guys in the living room. It was wild, and
yeah,
uh, we
yeah,
we end up just all becoming friends and saying like, you know what, once we're at the facility, we're gonna compete, we're gonna give us our best, and we're gonna try to like
yeah,
win the day and have an impressive tape that we can put out there. But then off the field, it was kind of like, all right, we're kicking it with the boys. We're kind of doing all kinds of different things. Hey, if you want to go see Niagara Falls, or most of the time I was playing FIFA because I was
yeah,
just like chilling. I didn't really like want to. want to go
Yeah.
out and do anything stupid. But
And that's the thing, it was snowing and it was probably -20 as well. So,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, that's like what you just hit on it. Weren't you? I know I'd always go into the room. I remember specifically in Lockport too, but all we did was play Xbox because that was like when Warzone was big. But when we moved to that other house, you were always just playing Ultimate Team on
yep.
FIFA. But correct me if I'm wrong, weren't you a top 100 player in Ultimate Team for
Yeah,
FIFA?
bro. Like it was weekend league time. You get 30 games for the weekend,
Yeah,
and I would go 29-1 or 30-0, and I'd be top 100. And that was kind of like every
yeah,
single weekend. And you felt like if you didn't play, you kind of lost it a little bit. Like, you still know what you're doing, but you're kind of figuring out like what's working with you. And so I would just go
yeah,
home and I'd grind the game because that was a way to keep the competition going for me. And that was just the routine. Then when I go into Lockport, New York, in that small, small place, and that's when the NFL like started tuning up a bit more. We can take like recruiting visits, you can take like official visits with teams, and you can actually like have
yep,
workouts. And so the very first workout I'd
yep,
planned was in Logan, Utah, back at my college. Flew in and had the Raiders as my first workout, was going to fly back to New York, and then like 3 days later fly back to Logan and have a workout with the Colts. Um, but so I had my first workout, and honestly, I sucked. Like I had a bad workout for my first workout and ended up missing like three or
yeah,
four field goals, but they were all the same thing. Like I was just yanking it a little bit to the left. Like they weren't bad misses. I was just coming around the ball a little bit, had that like rotation where you just know it's going to start off straight and then curve out a little bit outside.
a
And
little bit of a tail off.
it's
Yeah,
like I knew exactly what I was doing, but sometimes as a kicker, like you're not trying to change something right in the middle of like kicking. You're going to trust it, you're going to be with your technique, and if you're just a little bit off, hey, sometimes the best thing you can do is take a break, take the rest of the day, go tomorrow, you know what you did wrong, and then go actively trust your technique again with maybe a little tweak so that doesn't happen. And I was able to
yeah,
just talk with Byron. Byron's now the special teams coordinator with the Browns, but I was kind of talking him through it like, hey,
okay,
I want to be a master and an expert in my field. Like I know exactly what I did wrong there. Like now that I can see it, I know what I did wrong. I'm not going to fix it. I just know what it basically is that
yeah,
caused this. It's like sometimes the smallest thing as a kicker, it's like a golfer. You have a bad swing one day, but you're not going to change much. You're going to trust your technique and go back to the fundamentals. And next thing you know, you're hitting it on the green
yeah,
every single time. It's sometimes you have a bad day,
yeah,
and that's what happens, but I was ready like to go back and have a great workout with the Colts. And next thing you know, I
yeah,
land and COVID hit. And I was like, wait, what happened?
yeah,
Like, what do you mean there's a national wide shutdown and everybody has to go home that's not from their state?
yeah,
And so I was
yeah,
basically like 12 hours back in New York with y'all. Everybody's packing
yeah,
and had to go back to California. The Colts workout got
yeah,
canceled. Everything else got canceled. Nobody had any idea what was going on. And next thing you know, it's all just virtual interviews through Zoom. No workouts, no nothing.
yeah,
And that led into like pro day getting cut. Nobody had a pro day except for like a couple guys that had an early pro day before the shutdown kind of happened.
yeah,
And that
yeah,
played into the whole role of, okay, you can't really put too much game tape, or you got to rely on game tape. You can't really put too much tape from what you're looking like now in comparison to what your last season was. And I felt very confident,
yeah,
like, hey, I had one bad workout, but I know I was crushing the ball when I was with you guys. Kickoffs were getting better and better. And then that kind
yeah,
of gets cut out. No pro day, no individual workouts after that. I end up getting still a undrafted free agent contract right away. I didn't get drafted, which kind of sucked because that was something that I had worked for, but
yeah,
that's something that's out of my control and I can't be mad about it. But it used it as a motivation for what was going to come, and
yeah,
then I got a great opportunity in Las Vegas. Ended up developing there for a year before I ended up bouncing around for a couple other years and that ended up being like the
Yeah.
transition. Like, never would have imagined that one thing like COVID would happen that could change everything.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it also gave so many guys an opportunity to be on a practice squad for a year, get that redshirt year, and actually now help expand the practice squad to more players.
You know, you were saying about the COVID, like I think Logan and I packed our bags and drove back to Indiana that night at like midnight. We got on the road, but yeah, you know, obviously, you know, I think teams definitely look at game film, and you know, for you, I think you attempted 81 field goals in your college career, made 64. You didn't miss a PAT. You were like 164, 167 for 167. So the game film was there. You know, you had the interviews, you got a workout in. So for the situation like that was at hand, I mean, obviously we and anybody I know you took advantage of every opportunity that was put in front of you. So um, you know, you get signed to the Raiders. You may be one of the best operational special teams field goal units with Carlson, and then uh, what's the punter's name?
AJ Cole.
Um, yeah, AJ Cole. So like you're learning from two guys that are vets, especially Daniel. I mean, it's back to Daniel was when you were a sophomore in college was one of the Lou Groza finalists. So you know he's probably 3 or 4 years older than you, already in the NFL and stuff like that. So real quick, and you hit on it. You know, you were with Carolina for a little bit, Houston, why Kyrie Fairbairn was hurt, and you played, I think, in 3 or 4 weeks there and successful. But that's the thing, like, you know, he was just hurt for a couple of weeks. So you go in, you kick for those 4 weeks, he comes back, and then you get cut. You didn't do anything wrong, just kind of part of the
Yep.
process for special teams. But just give us, give us, you know, just a good idea, summarize it for us of the difference in college football to NFL for the kicking
Hey,
world.
it's a short week in the NFL sometimes. It's like you said, you can have a great game, you can have a bad game, and if you're only the guy that's supposed to fill in for one
Yeah,
week, that's exactly what they have on their mind. They'll be upfront about it too,
yeah,
and be like, "Hey, Kaimi's got COVID. You're up this week. Once he's back, you're out of here." And you just gotta be prepared for that
yeah,
and not be in your feelings about it. It doesn't have to be anything more than just strict business at times, because it was kind of funny. It was a full
yeah,
circle moment. Earlier that year, Kaimi had just hurt himself last preseason game, and they looked for
yeah.
a guy that would come in, play the first 4 weeks of the season while he's on IR, and then just be released right after that, and kind
Hmm.
of be like the guy that can bounce around from place to place. And funny enough, right at that time, I was on Carolina's practice squad the first time, got released like right before the roster day cuts. Um, I had the decision to go back to Carolina as a pre-squad guy with the opportunity to win the starting job, because it was me competing with
Yeah,
Ryan Santoso, what they just traded for, or go to Houston and fill in for 4 weeks while Emi was hurt. And I decided, you know what, I want to
yeah,
compete for a roster spot like this, the great opportunity. And I said no to Houston, and I went to Carolina. Well, Carolina ended up cutting Joey
yeah,
Sly. Joey Sly ended up going to Houston
yeah,
and filling in there for 4 weeks. And
yeah,
I was like, okay, that's kind of a funny circle, because then Joey went on a
yeah,
stint. Like he ended up playing for the Niners, like right after he got released.
yeah,
And I think he went straight to Washington or somewhere else, for the rest of the season.
yeah. I think it was Washington.
But
Yeah,
he ended up finding his rhythm, and I ended up just being on the practice squad at first, up until Emi got hurt the second time of the year, and I get called to fill in for one game. And that kind of tells you, like, you just gotta be prepared, because you don't know if it's gonna be at the beginning of the season, at the end of the season. Just hey, if you're not playing right now and you're a practice squad guy, or if you're right now in college waiting for your opportunity, it's better to just compete with yourself and be ready when your time is called than to do really anything else.
yeah. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things is, you know, like for me, I know, like, you know, my situation a lot different, but kind of when I was still saying like in the free agent world, just trying like you had to train as if you're on a team and stay ready because like for you, you could get a call. I remember you would tell me like, "Oh, my agent just reached out to me. I got to pack a quick bag," and you just kept like a little small bag ready with clothes just in case you got a call, and you could just get right to the airport like 20 minutes after you got a call. So it's like, that I could see the mental side of it. And it kind of goes back to like the high school to college transition. You know, you go from being the guy on your high school team to college, and everybody was the guy in high school to where like college NFL. Obviously, everybody was the guy on their college team go to the NFL, and now every kicker you go up against is gonna be that guy. Like it's that small pool of guys that are they if they've been through other workouts, they bring in two or three guys to work out, and hey, it's you guys kick the same script, and whoever we think does the best gets the spot. Things like that. A lot of pressure. You know, traveling and stuff like that. I think you said like when you were in Carolina, you were just living out of a hotel,
Yep.
right? While you're on practice
Yep. I
squad?
was in a hotel for the first month while I was there, and then I got a Airbnb
Yeah,
for another month so I could just, hey, continue
yeah,
it, kind of do a month to month deal. And I ended up getting cut like a day before the next month rent was due. So I was like, you know what? Like
yeah,
that would have been absolutely brutal having to just pay that up front, having no way of getting it back and
yeah,
getting cut like a day after.
yeah,
But yeah, you kind of take it the
yeah,
professional route of like, I'm here for business. I'm gonna take care of my stuff. Like
yeah,
I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna be a great teammate. I'm gonna be ready when my time's called. But at the same time, you're kind of doing stuff to get opportunities elsewhere, especially if I'm the practice squad. So for me, I didn't travel with the
yeah,
team for the away games in Carolina.
yeah,
All the home games, I would be the first one out on the field. I'd be out there kicking balls as long as I can before the games, get my workout in, make
yeah,
sure like, all right, I know this guy's the head coach. I know this guy's the special teams coordinator on the other team. They're gonna see me warm up. They're gonna see me kick, and even just being like, oh,
yeah,
who's this kid? Like maybe get a name, and you never know what kind of
yeah,
opportunity that gives to you, and that's sometimes like you got to create
yeah,
your own luck. Some people say like, oh, you're not allowed to be out
yeah.
there at this time, or you can't kick up until this minute before the game. Just being out there and
Yeah.
being of high spirits and working out, showing your abilities is sometimes the best way to do it.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, that's sick. And I think, like you said, it's almost like make your own little mini interview because everybody knows everybody. I gotta imagine in the NFL world and the coaching side, just like college. So, no, that's awesome. And love to hear about the journey. I know you finished up with Detroit. Did a year in the XFL with Seattle. So no, I mean, obviously, it's you had a great NFL career too to top off from your college career. So that's awesome, Dom. We appreciate you talking about that. And then I am getting just a quick text here from our rules analyst, Nick, that he just has a quick question. I don't know if he was looking at film or photos or something, but he says you have a lot of tattoos, and that's unknown for a kicker from what he's saying. So I guess break down, Dom, for us. Yeah, what I knew you had a lot, and you've got even more now. But all the tattoos, let's go through them. Why do you have the tattoos? What got you into them? I know you have one of um, oh, who is it on the Marvel character? Um,
It's not
not
Marvel, but it is DC. It's Joker.
oh,
Yeah,
it's DC. You have the Joker, but you have
I
what's his
got
name as
Venom on the other
well?
side.
Venom as well. But yeah, so give us just a quick, why we got all the
Yeah,
tattoos.
I don't know. Like the first ones and that kind of all started on my arm at first. They were kind of just motivational stuff.
Yeah,
Like I like to think deeply
yeah,
and I like to just be motivated by my own thoughts. And sometimes having that like
yeah,
connection of, you know what, this is a symbol that I can stand for. This is something that inspires me. This is something that gives me that extra motivation sometimes. Get out of bed, get an extra workout in, wake up early, do everything on my side because the competitiveness breeds through.
yeah.
So it's like I got a Kobe Bryant tattoo. I got my favorite song tattooed on me in the form of like the Spotify QR code, just so like, hey,
Oh, it's
this is the song
awesome.
that resembles every time I've gotten up in the morning. to go either kick at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
before high school started, or wake up at 5 a.m. because I gotta go practice, school, work, and get me through the grind in order to be successful. And the best way I thought to really like show that was by getting tattoos. And so I got my whole arm done with different meanings, all end up being the same kind of theme, being motivational. And that bred into like
Yeah.
um kind of something deeper. It was always like one of my favorite quotes, especially in like Batman. And you either die a hero or
Hmm.
you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And that ended up being the inspiration to
Yeah.
get all
Okay.
the villains tattooed on my right leg with a deeper meaning behind it. Like I'm a kicker who kicks with his right leg, and if I make it, I'm the hero. If I don't, then
Yeah.
everybody is not on your side. And I always liked all the other villains in all different kinds of movies, whether it was Joker, Venom. I'm gonna get Cell from Dragon Ball Z, Megatron. Um,
Okay.
so it ended up just being like the villain sleeve, uh, with that kind of theme and that
Yeah.
kind of thought behind it. So I felt like everything else had a deeper meaning, and especially being able to put that on my right leg was something where, if you really get me, that's kind of what you think about when you see it. But I
Yeah.
also just like getting like the artistry and stuff of it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I think I've been around for almost all of them now. I've seen them in person, so they are legit as well. So they're great. And I have my leg done. And I kind of think about it the same way. My body's kind of that blank canvas, and I put on tattoo things that have meaning, of some sort of impact in my life and stuff like that. So no, that's awesome what you've done with yours. I'm planning to add more to mine as well and finish my leg up and go from there. My wife is on me every day about finishing up my leg because she says I look silly, but it's something else for another day. But no, awesome, Dom. I appreciate it. And then kind of the last thing to really finish up here is, I know your NFL career is done, but you kind of honestly worked up to this. I feel like during your NFL career with, some of the streaming you were doing, and Twitch and stuff like that with FIFA and all of that. But I know you do a lot now. You're back in Germany, which is awesome. You're doing huge stuff prior to something that just happened recently in the sports card world, which I love, and so does my dad. And you and I chat about this all the time in sports cards. But what are you up to now? What's Dom's life look
Yeah,
like
hey,
now?
you hit it perfectly. Like I started just streaming my games because I was so obsessed with FIFA. I might as well just broadcast it out.
Yeah,
And next thing you know, you're getting more and more comfortable
yeah,
talking while you're playing the game. So you're talking to the people that are in the stream, and you got your camera on. Next thing you know, you're just talking in front of a camera the whole time, and it comes natural. And that kind of got into with the sports media world over in Germany. I was very active with a company and a podcast out here called Football Bromance, and being affiliated with
yeah,
them directly end up being, hey, you're with the number one sports news outlet and sports podcast for football in Germany and Europe. And that kind of
yeah,
just being around them gives you opportunities that you wouldn't have really thought of. And next thing you know, I just gotten released by Detroit probably like a week prior. I got called by my
mm-hmm,
manager Sami, and he said, "Hey, I got an opportunity. If you want to come out to Germany, we're gonna do this thing called Bromania. It's like a live action TV show mixed, but in front of like a stadium
yeah,
crowd. So we're in like an arena in front of like 4 or 5 thousand people, and just kind of do like a talk show,
yep,
do different challenges. Like it's a very normal German format. End up performing there with them."
yeah.
And then he told me, "Hey, you're going to commentate the very first NFL Germany game. It was the Buccaneers and the Seahawks." And I'm like, you know what? I've never commentated a game before,
That's sick.
but I'm open to actually doing that. And studied for the
Yeah,
game, got all my facts right, like learned how to prepare pretty much from the sports announcement standpoint, and they really liked it. And Sami said, "Hey, once your
yeah,
playing career is over, give this a thought because we would love to find a way to integrate you with that." And so I just called a game on Sunday. I fly back to the States on Monday. I wasn't available to get any sort of
Yeah.
calls from anybody while you're on a 13-hour flight over to Vegas. I land, and I kid you
Yeah.
not, I land, I get a call from my agent. He's like, "Hey, the Raiders want to work you out. Like they don't know if Daniel's hurt or not." I had not even
Yeah.
gotten adjusted to the time yet, and next thing you know, I got a workout. I made every single kick in my workout. It went great. Daniel was fine. Ended up going home, but I was like, well, okay, my playing career definitely isn't over yet, but let me
Yeah.
prepare for the sports broadcasting just in case that ever was going to be something I want to
Yeah.
pursue after my career. And then once that didn't happen for a year where I got any sort of workouts or anything, I said, you know what, I'll give it full go. I moved back to Germany and take that by storm. With my
Yeah.
first year, uh, got to commentate every single week except the Super Bowl. Now this past year was my second year, and I got to commentate every single game, including the Super Bowl. And that kind of just took off on its
Yeah.
own, and the broadcasting channel and the platform that was given to me through Sami and Football Bromance is something I'm always thankful for, because now that's kind of just become
Yeah.
part of my career and part of what I do.
Yeah. No, and I think for people to see the consistency of the work ethic you put in your on the field and off the field, and it goes back to, you said, your high school career. You worked, you had an opportunity presented to yourself, and you took advantage of it and ran full speed. Same thing with college, same thing with NFL, and then now even your professional career. And that's why, I mean, I think it's literally 2
Yeah,
a.m. right now, and we're doing this first interview with you. But I see the grind myself from a distance. I'm excited to see you guys just continue to climb and grow in that. And plus, you're preparing for football season, I'm sure already. It's kind of your dead time, but also, the
yep,
drafts this week for the NFL, and then rookie mini camp will get here and stuff like that. So football will be back, quickly and before we know it. So, but no, Dom, I want to say thank you so much, for joining me on episode one. I said this in the beginning, but this was something that just kind of started as an idea. I told you months ago I always wanted to get into podcasting, didn't know how to do it, didn't know what it would look like. I was like, it's cool to think about, but that's as far as it goes for me. And obviously, the Gridiron 1880 gave me a platform to kind of tell my story, but get on, guest friends, coaches, whatever it is, to talk football, talk special teams, talk about their lives and their journeys. And I hope a lot of people that watch this can kind of take some motivation. Not to be cheesy here, but listen to what your career was like, because there was a lot of up and down. But I'm sure if you were to tell somebody, you wouldn't change one thing from a lifetime of kicking to now broadcasting internationally, for NFL games, and you're building a successful career now in sports broadcasting and sports cards and stuff like that. I'm happy to see you being successful, Dom. And like I said, I wouldn't want anybody else on my first episode. So, brother, I appreciate you. Got to get you back over to the States. It's been too long since the wedding last July, but um, thanks a lot, Dom. I
Hey, I
appreciate it.
appreciated being here with you, man. It's always a bunch of fun talking ball and reminiscing over the good times that we had, especially in Buffalo. Uh, yeah, just everything is
Yeah,
just great, and really the idea that you had of starting this, that's always the first step, is just starting it and doing it. And uh, as soon as you start
yeah,
doing it, you start having more fun with it, and whatever comes, comes. And as long as you know the things that you can control, that's perfect. That's what you can do. Everything else kind of just comes by itself. And
yeah.
hey, I'm very thankful to be here with you.
Again, though, Dom, appreciate you. Much love as always.
Laces